So imagine, looking your boss dead in the eye and saying, I stopped to work.
Oh, that is a dangerous mistake.
Right. Because what you actually meant to say was, I stopped working. I mean, one of those means you got distracted by something else and paused your job. And the other means you literally just quit the company entirely.
Yeah, it is a microscopic shift in the actual words, but a seismic shift in the meaning. And honestly, that's exactly what makes English both so expressive and, frankly, so terrifying for beginners.
Terrifying is absolutely the right word. But today, for you listening, we are going to completely demystify this. We have a massive stack of sources in front of us today, just a comprehensive collection of grammar masterclasses and guides that are designed specifically for beginners.
Right, and our mission for this deep dive is to really extract the absolute core logic of English grammar. We are not just going to, hand you a boring list of rules to memorize.
No, definitely not. Because memorizing rules without understanding them is like, I don't know, trying to memorize the layout of a city you've never even visited.
You're going to get lost.
Exactly. You get lost immediately. So instead, we're going to look at why these rules exist in the first place. And the sources give us this phenomenal way to visualize it. Usually, we think of a sentence like a necklace, right? You just pop the beads on a string, like noun, verb, adjective, and you just kind of hope it looks pretty.
But English is not a necklace.
Whoa, it's a machine. And the verbs are the engines of our sentences. So today, we're opening the hood.
I love that. It's the perfect analogy because, an engine has distinct systems that all have to work together based on a specific physical logic. Once you see that logic, like the mechanics of how the parts connect, you stop guessing and you actually start driving.
Okay, so let's unpack this engine. If the verb is the engine, I feel like the very first thing we need to understand is how this engine handles time. Because timing is everything.
Absolutely.
But in English, time isn't just like a simple straight line of past, present, and future, is it?
No, it's a little more three-dimensional than that. The sources break down the ways verbs view time into three main categories. So you have simple, continuous, and perfect tenses.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's easiest to think about them as different types of cameras.
Oh, I like that camera idea. So what kind of camera is the simple tense?
It's a Polaroid, like a single snapshot. The simple tenses view a complete action as a whole. It's usually a fact or a habit. So if I say the sun rises in the east, I'm not talking about this exact second.
Right, you're giving a snapshot of a universal truth.
Exactly. Or if I say I work every day, that's just a snapshot of my routine.
So snapshot, got it. What about continuous? Because sometimes they call that progressive, right?
Yeah, progressive or continuous. And if the simple tense is a snapshot, the continuous tense is a video clip.
A video clip, okay.
Right. It focuses on the duration of an activity. It tells us the action is in progress, and often that it's just temporary. So I am working right now. The video is playing at this exact moment.
Okay, which leaves the perfect tenses. And look, if you're listening to this and you've ever tried to learn English, this is usually where the headache starts. I mean, I had worked. Why do we even need these?
I know it's tricky, but the logic here is actually quite beautiful. Think of the perfect tenses not as a camera, but as a bridge.
A bridge.
Yeah, they connect two different time periods. They exist to show that an action was completed before another time or event, but it still matters right now.
Can you give me a real-world example of that bridge?
Sure. So if you say, I finished my work, that's a snapshot of the past. It's over. But if you say, I have finished my work, so now I'm free, you're building a bridge.
Oh, I see.
You are connecting a past action, which is finishing the work, directly to your present state of being free. The past is basically holding hands with the present.
That makes so much sense. It's not just about when it happened, it's about how it affects you right now. But okay, let's stay in the past for a second. If I want to take this engine and throw it into reverse, like talk about things that are completely over, I just slap an ed onto the end of the verb, right? Like look becomes look, work becomes worked.
For regular verbs, yeah, that is the foundation. Regardless of the subject, I, you, he, she, they, you just add ed. But as you might guess, English spelling has a few quirks to navigate here.
Right, because if I have a word like hope, which already ends in an E, I assume I don't write it out as H-O-P-E-D.
Exactly. The rule there is just about efficiency. If the verb already ends in a silent E, you literally just add a D. Hope becomes hoped, like becomes liked.
Okay, simple enough.
Then there is a rule for words ending in Y. If the verb ends in a consonant plus Y, you change that Y to an I and then add ed. So cry transforms its Y into an I before getting the E.
Okay, so we're saving letters, swapping letters, But there's one rule that always drove me crazy, the doubling rule.
Ah, the CVC rule.
Yeah, like why do some words suddenly get an extra consonant out of nowhere? Like stop getting a second P before the ed. Is English just trying to sell more printer ink or what?
It really feels that way sometimes. But there's a vital, totally logical reason for this. It's called the CVC rule, which stands for consonant, vowel, consonant. Let's look at the word plan.
Plan.
Right. It ends in a consonant, a vowel, and a consonant. If we just added ed directly to it, with only one n, the silent e in that ending would reach over the single consonant and make the vowel a say its name.
Wait, really?
Yes. Think of the word plane, like an airplane. It has that long A sound because of the E at the end. If we didn't double the N in planned, it would be spelled just like planed. You would literally be saying, I planed a trip to the store.
Oh, wow. So we double the consonant to build a wall. Like we're protecting the short vowel sound from that magic E.
And that is exactly what it is. It's a protective wall. So plan gets a second N to keep the A sounding short. Stop gets a second P to protect the short O.
That is incredible. I never knew that. But wait, what if I have a longer word like visit? That ends in consonant, vowel, consonant. But we don't double the T in visited. Why not?
Because the stress of the word is on the first syllable, V-I-S-it. The wall is only needed if the stress is on that final CVC syllable.
Okay, I feel like a wizard knowing that now. That is such a good cheat code.
It really is.
But, if you're a beginner listening to this, especially if you're just on your commute, you might be thinking, great, I can spell it now, but I still can't say it. Because in spoken English, those E endings just sound like a mashed up mess. I mean, sometimes it sounds like a D, sometimes a T, sometimes a whole extra syllable.
You've hit on a major hurdle there. But it isn't random at all. It's actually entirely physical. If you put your hand on your throat right now and see a word that ends in an unvoiced sound, like ask with that hard K, your vocal cords don't vibrate on the K.
Ask?
Yeah.
It's just air in the front of my mouth.
Right. Because your throat is already turned off for the K, it's physically easier to just keep it turned off for the ending. So the ed comes out as an unvoiced T sound. Asks.
Asked. Wow, it really is a T.
Now try a word that ends in a voiced sound, like play. Your throat is vibrating on that Y sound.
Play. Yep, I definitely feel the buzz.
So you keep the motor running. You use the voiced D sound. Played.
This is an absolute revelation. So the spelling is exactly the same, but the pronunciation just takes the path of least physical resistance in the throat.
Exactly.
So when do we actually pronounce it as a full extra syllable, like wanted or needed?
Only when the base word already ends in a T or a D sound. Because think about it, if you try to add a T sound to want, you literally can't do it without adding a breath. Want T. It just doesn't work.
Right, sounds like a stutter.
Yeah, so we add the vowel sound to make it pronounceable. Wanted, needed.
Okay, so those are the rules for the regular verbs, the parts of the engine that actually follow the manual. But we all know English has its rebels, the verbs that completely ignore the manual.
Yes, the irregular verbs. The sources are very honest here. There is no secret code for these. They do not use red, and they simply have to be memorized. But to keep your sanity, the guides do group them into 3 patterns.
Let me guess. Pattern 1 is the lazy group.
Pretty much, yeah. The verb is exactly the same in the present, the past, and the perfect tense. Cut, cut, cut. Today I cut the paper. Yesterday I cut the paper. I have cut the paper.
The most efficient verbs in the language. I love them. What's group 2?
Group 2 has 2 forms that are the same. Usually it's the past and the perfect forms that match. So buy, bought, or catch, caught, caught.
Which leaves group 3, which I assume is maximum chaos.
Oh, absolute chaos. All 3 forms are completely different. Go, went, gone. See, saw, seen, drink, drank, drunk.
Just got to memorize them. And just to wrap up the past tense, the sources mention a very specific way we describe existence in the past. Like if I want to just say something was simply there.
It's straightforward, but really crucial. If a single thing existed, you use there was. There was a book on the table. If multiple things existed, you use there were. There were 7 books.
Perfect transition. Because that brings us to the next major system in our engine. Our timing belt is set, the time is correct. But if the pistons don't match the cylinders, the whole engine rips itself apart. We need to make sure the who and the what actually match up with our verb.
Right. This is what the sources call the golden rule of subject-verb agreement. At its core, it just states that a singular subject needs a singular verb, and a plural subject needs a plural verb.
Which sounds ridiculously simple until you realize that nouns and verbs handle the letter S in exactly opposite ways, and this trips up almost everyone.
It is incredibly counterintuitive at first. Think about how we make a noun plural. We almost always add an S. one cat, two cats. The S means more than one.
Right.
But for verbs, it's basically reversed. A singular verb in the present tense often ends in S. The cat eats. The noun cat is singular, so it has no S. But the verb eats is singular, so it gets an S.
It's like they trade the S back and forth.
Exactly. If we make it plural, the noun gets the S and the verb drops it. The cats eat.
So the S is like a hot potato. Only one of them can hold it at a time.
That's a great way to look at it.
And this applies to pronouns too, right? He, she, it, those are singular pronouns, so they take the singular verb with the S. He drives to work.
Yeah.
But they take the plural form without the S. They drive to work.
Correct. But there is a trap here with the pronoun you.
Yes. I need you to explain this to me because it defies all logic. I can be looking right at you, one single person. But grammatically, you always acts like it's plural.
Yeah, it is one of those deep historical quirks of the English language.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you is referring to one single individual, it demands the plural verb form. We say, you are my friend, never you is my friend. You drive, never you drives.
It's just a stubborn word. Okay, let me throw a wrench into the gears here. Collective nouns. Words like team, family, government, staff. The sources flag these as a major hazard because a team is one single group, but it's made up of many people. So, does a collective noun get a singular verb or a plural verb?
What's fascinating here is that the answer depends entirely on the intention of the speaker. It's about how you are viewing the group in that specific moment.
Wait, what do you mean?
If the group is acting as one single unified unit, use a singular verb. The team has a new coach. The team, as a single entity, possesses the coach. But if the members of the group are acting as individuals doing different things, you can use a plural verb. The team are arguing about the strategy.
Oh, because the team itself isn't arguing with another team. The individual players inside the team are arguing with each other.
Precisely. And the sources note an interesting cultural divide here, actually. Using the plural verb for collective nouns, like saying the government are deciding, is much more common in British English. American English tends to treat them almost exclusively as singular.
Okay, so intention really matters. But what about words that are just straight up wearing a disguise? The hidden plurals and singulars.
Ah, the masqueraders. Yes, there are words that represent multiple people or things, but they don't end in S. Words like people, police, or cattle. You must always use a plural verb for them. You say the police have arrested a suspect. You would never say the police has.
And what's the flip side of that disguise? Words that end in S but are actually just one thing.
Words like news or physics or measles. They look plural, but they are singular subjects. You say the news is on at 6 p.m., not the news are.
Got it. All right, one last agreement puzzle from the sources. What happens if I have two subjects joined together?
Well, if they are joined by the word and, they form a plural. Tom and Ann are here. 1 + 1 = 2, plural verb. But if they're joined by or nor, we use a completely different mechanism called the proximity rule.
Proximity, meaning distance.
Exactly. The verb simply agrees with whichever subject is physically closest to it in the sentence.
That is wild. Give me an example of that.
Let's use a singular teacher and plural students. Neither the teacher nor the students are here. The word students is plural, and it's right next to the verb, so we use the plural verb are.
But if I flip the order of the sentence...
Neither the students nor the teacher is here. Now, the singular teacher is closest to the verb, so the verb becomes singular, is.
The engine just adapts to whatever part is bolted right next to it. I absolutely love that. Okay, so all timing is perfect. Our gears are synchronized. Now, we have to look at the drivetrain. Where is the action going? Does the power hit a target, or does it just run on its own? This is the transfer of power. Transitive versus intransitive verbs.
This is a concept that fundamentally changes how you build sentences. A transitive verb needs a direct object to receive its action. You can always find the object by asking what or whom immediately after the verb.
The analogy that came to mind reading the sources was baseball. A transitive verb is like throwing a pitch. Someone has to be there to catch it.
Yeah.
You can't just throw buys. If I walk into the room and say, Dad buys, you're going to stare at me and say, buys what? You need the catcher. Dad buys tea. The action of buying transfers directly to the tea.
That's a brilliant way to picture it. The transitive verb demands a receiver. So if that's a transitive verb, what is an intransitive verb in that analogy?
It's just like dancing. You just do it. No catcher required. If I say, the baby cried, you can't ask cried what? The action doesn't transfer to anything. It's complete all by itself.
Exactly. Intransitive verbs do not transfer action. Now, we often add extra scenery around intransitive verbs using adverbs or prepositions. We might explain how, where, or when the dancing happened. The baby cried loudly. Loudly tells us how, but it's not a direct object. Birds fly in the sky, and the sky tells us where, but the sky isn't receiving the action of flying.
But here's where the sources highlight the absolute worst traps in the English language. Pairs of verbs that look similar, sound similar, mean almost the same thing, but one is the baseball pitch and one is the dance. Let's look at raise and rise.
Okay, so raise is transitive. It means to lift something up. You must have an object. She raised her hand. Rise is intransitive. It means something gets up or increases all by itself. The sun rises. You can't rise a hand.
Okay, next pair, set and sit.
Set is transitive, to put or place something. We set the timer. You threw the action at the timer. Sit is intransitive, to be seated. They are sitting by the window. The action is totally self-contained.
And the final pair, which contains a rule that honestly made me want to throw the grammar guide across the room, lay and lie.
Oh, it's the ultimate trap for both learners and native speakers. Lay is transitive. It means to place something down carefully. I lay the baby in the crib. Lie is intransitive. It means to recline your own body. The dog lies on the rug.
Okay, that makes sense in the present tense. I lay the book down, I lie on the bed. But the sources point out what happens in the past tense, and it is sheer cruelty.
Yes. The past tense of the transitive verb lay is laid. Yesterday I laid the book on the table.
Fine, but what is the past tense of the intransitive verb lie?
The past tense of lie is lay.
Why? I mean, why would English take the present tense of one verb and make it the exact same word for the past tense of a different verb? Today I lay the book on the table, but also yesterday I lay on the bed.
It is infuriating, I know. But this is exactly why understanding transitive versus intransitive is so vital. It's your only survival tool here. The only way to know which lay you are dealing with is to look for the catcher. Is there a direct object receiving the action? If yes, it's the transitive verb. If there's no object and someone is just resting, you know it must be the past tense of the intransitive verb.
Okay, my brain needs a second to recover from that one. But before we move on to the final section, there is a quick note in the sources about indirect objects that we should probably mention. Because sometimes a transitive verb has two catchers.
Yes, that's right. Sometimes an action is done to or for someone. This is a very common error area. Certain transitive verbs require a preposition like to or for to show who receives the action. You must say, she explained the problem to me. You cannot say, she explained me the problem.
Right, you can't throw the problem directly at me without the preposition to. Okay, let's look at our final section of the engine, the shapeshifters. What happens when our verbs try to team up with other verbs, or even just disguise themselves entirely?
This brings us to the ing forms, which are also known as gerunds and infinitives. A gerund is what happens when an engine part decides to act like the chassis. It's a verb putting on a disguise to act like a noun. Because it's acting like a noun, it can be the subject of a sentence, like smoking is dangerous. Or it can be an object, like I enjoy cooking.
Now, if I'm a beginner, I'm thinking, how do I know when to use the ung form and when to use the to infinitive? And the sources give us a massive golden rule regarding prepositions. A real cheat code.
It is one of the most reliable rules in English grammar. If a verb comes immediately after a preposition, words like since, by, on, after, before, without, in, at, it absolutely must take the ing gerund form.
So like, I'm worried about failing. Thanks for inviting me. He went home after finishing his work.
Exactly. The preposition basically locks the verb into that ing shape.
We love reliable rules, but then we have verbs teaming up with other verbs, like one action following another. And the sources say some verbs are incredibly picky about who they team up with.
Very ticky. Some verbs demand that any verb following them must be an ing gerund. Verbs like enjoy, avoid, suggest, risk. I enjoy swimming. She avoided answering. You can't say, I enjoy to swim. Other verbs demand a to infinitive. Verbs like want, decide, promise, hope. I want to leave. They decided to stay.
This sounds like something you just kind of have to memorize through exposure over time. But what if I mix them up? What if a verb can take both forms? Does it actually matter?
This is where we circle back to the very beginning of our deep dive. For some verbs, it doesn't matter much at all. It started to rain, and it started raining. I mean, it's essentially the exact same thing. But for others, the verbs are shapeshifters, and the meaning completely transforms depending on whether you use ing or to.
The meaning changers. Give me an example.
Let's look at the verb remember. If you pair remember with an ing verb, you are talking about recalling a memory of an action that already happened in the past. You have the picture in your head. I remember closing the door.
Right, I can literally picture myself turning the lock.
Exactly. But if you pair remember with a to infinitive, it refers to a duty or a task you must perform in the future. remember to close the door.
Oh, wow. That is a massive difference in real life. Like, I remember paying the bill means my electricity is going to stay on. Remember to pay the bill means I haven't done it yet, and I'm in trouble if I forget.
Precisely. Try is another shapeshifter. Try plus ing means you're doing an experiment to see if a solution works.
Yeah.
My back hurts. Try sleeping on the floor. You're just testing it out. But try plus to implies a difficult effort or a major attempt. Try to learn Japanese. You aren't just casually testing it, you are really exerting effort.
Which brings us back to the example from the very top of the show, actually, the verb stop. It highlights the difference between quitting an activity entirely and just interrupting yourself.
Stop plus to means you quit the action entirely. She stopped eating chocolate.
A tragedy.
Definitely. But stop plus to means you interrupted what you were doing in order to perform a new action. She stopped to eat a chocolate.
A triumph. She was walking down the street, she halted her momentum, and she ate the chocolate. Two totally different life choices, dictated entirely by an ing versus a toe.
And this is exactly why we can't just memorize the beads on a string. The mechanical connections change the entire outcome of the sentence.
So, what does this all mean for you listening? If we look back at our journey under the hood today, we've seen that the English sentence really is an interlocking machine. The tenses map out the time, they act as the timing belt. Subject-verb agreement is the synchronization that keeps the gears from grinding, passing that S back and forth.
Why?
Transitivity is the drive shaft. It directs whether the power hits a target object or just runs smoothly on its own. And those shape-shifting gerunds and infinitives dictate how the moving parts interact with each other.
And mastering this isn't just about passing a grammar test, It's about having the tools to build precise, powerful, and natural-sounding ideas. When you know how the engine works, you can fix it when it breaks.
It's giving you the keys to actually drive the car instead of just sitting in the passenger seat.
Exactly. And I actually want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We've talked a lot about rules and mechanics today, but English grammar is incredibly flexible. The rules aren't rigid labels permanently glued to words in a dictionary. They're invisible strings connecting the relationships between ideas. A single verb can completely change its mechanical identity based purely on how it relates to the words around it.
Wait, how so? Give me an example of a verb changing its identity.
Take the simple verb runs. If I say, my mom runs her own company, that verb is acting as a transitive engine. The company is the direct object, the catcher, receiving the action of being run. In this context, it means to manage or operate.
Okay, yeah, I follow that.
But if I say, my mom runs in the park, suddenly that exact same word is intransitive. There is no catcher. No object is receiving the action. It just means she is physically jogging. The letters in the word didn't change at all. The context changed, meaning the context ultimately is always the boss of English grammar.
So even when we open the hood, learn the rules, and understand every single gear in the engine, it still fundamentally matters where you're driving it.
It absolutely does. Every single time.